In a world where losing in your fantasy football league isn't an option, we present to you Triple Coverage Podcast.
Hey YouTubers, if you like what you see, make sure you click subscribe below. Today we're going to be talking about the AFC South and breaking down that division from a fantasy perspective. And if you have time, make sure you go on www.podcastawards.com and vote for TCP, Triple Coverage Podcast. Thank you guys.
Fisher said he was going to use them that way, but Fisher's running a high school offense, so maybe they don't have those in high school.
Cowboys have a complicated offense now?
More complicated than Jeff Fisher's. Jeff Fisher's out of the league because of his terrible offense. Todd Gurley even called him out while he was still his coach.
That's all I'm about safety. I'm about being secure. I'm fair, but I'm firm.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, Triple Coverage Podcast. It's just the two of us here today. It's me and Jay. I think this might be my first double coverage.
It is kind of weird. I'll tell you. Last week when you were on the beach in Laguna,
It was nice.
it was nice for you.
Yeah,
it
it
was weird though, because when you have two guys going back and forth, there's no one there to settle the score.
And you,
so to speak.
truth be told, you guys are brothers. You
Right.
guys know each other's nuances, so there's not a whole lot of disagreement that goes on with you two sometimes. I'm usually the dissenting view, especially with James. So yeah, I was listening from afar, wishing I was here because I wanted to get into it a couple times with a few topics.
There's a couple times where I needed you because I knew what side you were gonna be on, and you weren't there.
I'm sorry, bro.
All right, well,
I got your back from afar though. I was sending good positive vibes. It didn't really help.
And we got the pictures back from Lagoon. Everything looked like it was fun.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Right.
What is it? 110 here.
The whole time you were
105?
gone, 110 the whole time you were gone.
It's
Yeah.
like 65 at night, 75 during the day there. Oh, it was beautiful.
Well, not only that, but it wasn't your son's first time on the beach, right? It was.
Yeah, it was. He's
Yeah.
1 year old.
Yeah.
Or 1 year old. Yeah, it's first time. He was a little hesitant that first day. He didn't know what the sand and the beach and
Yeah.
the water. But that second day, he was eating handfuls of sand. He was digging it. He was running all over. He was loving it. Yeah.
He
it
thought
was
you
good.
brought him to a buffet.
He's like, what is it? Every time he turned around, he's got like sand all over his face, dude. It was bad.
I like how you use the 1 year old too, because I don't know why it bothers me that people use months. Like even when their kid gets a little older, like, oh, my son is 38 months old. Like I don't want to do math.
24. I think it's up to 2. I think that's kind of the unwritten rule of babies. I don't know.
I never did that. I have 2 kids, and they're 12 years old and 9. I don't even know what that would be in months, but I never did that. I was like, yeah, he's 1 or he's 1.5.
Yeah, see, like 18 months or when you
Yeah.
buy stuff for babies. I mean, I don't know why we're talking about babies right now, but that's how they decide. They're in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months.
I think we're talking about babies because the first team we're breaking down, the Houston Texans, they have a lot of young guys.
They do. Some good babies. Some crybabies.
Let's get into this. I don't know about crybabies, but they do have some young guys in their squad.
They were crying last year because they got hurt so much.
That was bad, yeah, especially with J.J. Watt. They had a lot of injuries in their defense. The biggest injury of all, of course, Deshaun Watson, but who knew how good he was going to be in the time that he did play?
I don't think anybody did.
No.
Like, he got kind of bagged on a little bit for lack of arm strength and all these different things coming out.
Well, there was one guy. One guy knew how good he would be, and that was Dabo Swinney, the coach of Clemson. He's the one that said, if you pass on this guy, you're passing on the Michael Jordan of this draft.
And he was very prophetic.
He was.
Not pathetic. He was prophetic.
No, he's good. He's good. What do you got for us on Houston?
Okay, so Houston, let's recap a little bit from last year. Bill O'Brien, he's been there for a few years, since 2014. We know him from his time with the Patriots.
Yeah, he's a Belichick
under
disciple.
Belichick, yeah. So looking back over the last 4 years, if you had to guess, like their record each year. So last year they went 4-12, but the 3
Right.
years prior to that, if you had to throw out a couple numbers, what would their record have been the last 3 years?
I feel like one of them was it 8-8. One of them
No, close.
9-7.
All 3 were 9-7.
Oh wow.
So which was surprising to me because I didn't see them at that's a winning record last 3 years, and they struggled through terrible quarterback play,
Right.
through injuries to various guys, through the shuffling of running backs and guys coming in that were supposed to do this, supposed to do that, defensive injuries. Drafted Jadeveon Clowney so
Right.
high, and he was injured that first year and didn't play much. So now it seems like it's coming together. Bill O'Brien was getting kind of bagged on quite a bit that he might not be there too long.
Yeah, and I don't get that because I thought anybody that loses their leader on offense in Deshaun Watson and then loses their leader on defense with J.J. Watt, like how well do you expect them to play after that?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'd be interested to see, and this obviously is something we haven't broken down here, but I would be interested to see what it's been like their defense when Watt and Clowney have both been on the field like full time. Like, has there been very many games with that, or has it been like a small sample
I
size?
think it's. If
I
I
feel
had
like
to guess, I would say it was small sample size.
Yeah, I feel like they both are always like hurt at different times or hurt together. Like they never got on the field together for a lot.
Yeah, I think last year was the year we were expecting to see that dominance.
Right.
Because they're both very dominant players. I think part of the thing with Bill O'Brien was he another one of those like, was it Charlie Weiss? That was in
Charlie
New
Weiss.
England?
Yeah,
And he
Weiss was in New England.
Guys that have left New England and then kind of just fell on their face a little bit at other spots, head
Right.
coaching. I think he was starting to get that rap. Like, well, maybe it was all Belichick. It wasn't him, and da-da-da. But when you look back at it, he's done very well with the carousel of quarterbacks they've had.
Correct.
Which is surprising to me because they haven't been good.
Well, now with Deshaun Watson, they have their quarterback of the future. He obviously tore his ACL last year and missed a good portion of the season. But when he did play, he was electric. Like, he was dominant.
Very, very much so.
Even if he comes back this year and even plays just sort of up to that par, he's going to be a very good quarterback. I don't know if he'll be able to repeat what he did. That was very, very high to sustain the fantasy points that he was churning out. I mean, he was throwing touchdowns left and right. Like,
Yeah.
it was multiple touchdown games.
Yeah, I think it really depends on that. I mean, we can jump to the quarterbacks, obviously. There's nothing really behind him.
No, at
so
all.
if he goes down, fantasy-wise, I don't even think anybody's worth a look. You got Brandon Whedon and Joe Webb, basically journeyman guys. How he comes back from that injury is what's really, man, is really going to be telling. Because is he going to be able to be mobile like he was? Because a lot of plays he was able to make were scrambling around, plays breaking down, finding a guy. So is that mobility still going to be there? I feel like they can't ask him to play different and not be play his game. Like, I think that would be.
They've already come out and said, and I know that sometimes you can chalk this up to coach speak, but they've already come out and said that he's not going to change his playing style, which is good.
I like to hear that.
Yeah, that's good because sometimes these guys get injuries and they literally shut down that whole facet of their game. We know RG3 tried doing that and it just wasn't the same. He wasn't the same quarterback.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that went into RG3 for his downfall.
Yeah.
I do believe, by all accounts that have been coming out, that he's progressing very well from that injury, and all signs so far have been saying that he's going to be good to go. So
I think he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
In redraft and in Dynasty, he's probably even higher, but in redraft leagues, I think he's a top 5 quarterback.
I mean, he's going to be taken super high
Right.
in all those drafts.
So you probably won't own him.
I probably not, because I don't like to take quarterbacks that early necessarily. And it is a risky pick. It's a very risky pick because if he does get hurt, he's coming off injury. It was a small sample size, but also it's a risk reward because it could be a lottery ticket. Like,
It could be. It could be. But what if he comes back and he's just like a good quarterback? I'm not saying bad. What if he comes back from this injury and he's just a good quarterback? Then you basically spent a 3rd or maybe 4th round pick on this guy in a redraft league, and you're kind of deficient in other spots because of it.
Yeah, it is risky, very risky. I agree.
I want to talk about the running backs.
I do too.
Because this is very interesting to me. I know, obviously Lamar Miller right now is sitting atop of the depth chart. He's not as bad as people think. I think that what happened was when he was in Miami and he showed those flashes, everyone just expected him to take the next step and be a top 10 running back. And I don't think he's ever going to be that, but I think he's a solid running back for your fantasy teams.
No, I agree. You can't look at him as like that upper echelon of RB1s, but he's going to be very consistent for you. And those are the kind of guys you need to look for and have on your fantasy teams, I feel like. you're right. His value is weird. Like if you're looking like dynasty perspective, it's very weird because you're not going to get a lot for him if you're selling him, and
Right.
You might have to overpay to get him if somebody just doesn't dislike him so much that they're willing to take whatever to get rid of him, because he is that guy you just plug in and kind of forget about.
Right. I feel like if you own him in Dynasty, you probably want to hold on to him, or you think he's valued a little higher than maybe he is. And if you're trying to trade for him, you're not going to give top dollar because he's not a top running back. It's kind of a weird situation for Lamar Miller, but I'm a little worried about Dante Foreman. I thought that he was going to be the guy to kind of take over this year, and that Achilles injury is no joke. Like, that's a pretty serious injury, and a lot of guys do come back from the Achilles injury. They do.
But not necessarily running backs.
Right.
Other positions have been known to, it's very rare for, from the things I've been listening to, guys talking about, specific injuries and the timetables and how, if they come back, are they the same kind of player that they were? And Achilles seems to be not good, man.
It seems to be worse than everyone back in the day was afraid of the ACL tear.
Yeah.
And once you got an ACL tear, especially as a running back, everyone was ready to throw you in the garbage. They're like, oh, it's going to be at least 2 years before he's back to normal, and he's not going to have that same thing. Well, to me, like ACLs, where they knock you out for that year, I feel like their recovery time is a lot faster than it used to be. But the Achilles is a completely different story. I think he got hurt towards the later end of the year. It might have been like week 11 or 12-ish. So it wasn't like he had all year to kind of heal. Like, he's not going to be ready for week 1, in my opinion.
No. I feel like knowing what I know now and hearing some of the things about those types of injuries, it definitely scares me off of Foreman. There was a time I like to go in Dynasty, for me. I like to go after guys that their value is very depressed, maybe coming off an injury that you do like their talent, you can get cheap. He's kind of one of those guys. I had drafted him in a rookie draft last year, but now I don't know if I want to take that chance on an injury that there's really no history of guys being able to come back and be productive and be good for you in fantasy.
And he may even be a candidate for the PUP list to start the year, which means that if they put you on the PUP list at the beginning of the year, you miss the first 6 games.
So, okay, so definitely redraft. I wouldn't touch him in redraft.
Right, I agree.
I mean, he might pay off for you, but that's a risk I'm not going to take.
Do you think he's a buy low in Dynasty? Do you think he comes back from this and he's okay to be the way... I mean, let's face it, he's not going to have the same burst. I don't care what anybody says. You blow out your Achilles, you're not going to have the same burst as you had before. That was part of his game.
Yeah.
How quick he was. So do you try to buy low, or you just stay away altogether, even Dynasty and redraft?
I mean, at some point, there would be a price that I would pay, but most likely it's a clear avoid for me. Like, it would have to be just a super deep shot in the dark because of the scare of that injury. I just don't want to do it. And he's not the number 1 there necessarily either. So he's coming back. Wouldn't be getting a full load, which might be good for him, I guess, to not be thrown in to the fire like that. But, I mean, they kept Alfred Blue, who's always kind of just been the journeyman guy there. So when somebody does go down, he comes in and gets work. And he can be in there for a week or 2 for you in your league if you happen to just pick him up off the waiver wire or have him stashed. After that,
there's nothing.
There's nobody. So Lamar Miller, for me, is definitely the guy to own in Houston.
Yeah, and I feel like Blue has been given opportunities and he's played well, but for whatever reason, I just feel like the Texans don't love Blue. They don't want Blue to become like the lead back. They just want Blue to be there in case they need him in emergency. Like, there was a point where they weren't even sure if they were going to re-sign him or not, and the fact that they did tells me that
Foreman's not quite ready, maybe.
Right.
And they're sketched out about that.
Correct.
I see. To kind of touch on that, like, they don't love him. I think maybe they do love him for what he is to them, for them.
That's okay. That's understandable.
Because he's not going to be. He's had a chance to kind of run with the job, and that's not that guy. Not everybody can be that guy. You need those guys that are his position to fill those roles.
Right.
So I think maybe they do. Like, he's been consistent for them. He knows the deal down there in Houston. So for all extensive purposes, he is worth keeping an eye on for me. I have him in a league, and he's one of my cut candidates, and I'm having a hard time deciding to cut him because I think if Foreman doesn't come back, he's one injury away from
being a starting running
able
back.
to be used at some point during the season on my team.
And when you have Deshaun Watson there, like we said, and then this receiving core that we're about ready to dive into, it kind of takes the pressure off of the running game because they're starting with two studs. When you have DeAndre Hopkins as your number one, and you have Will Fuller, who when he's healthy is a very solid number two, that's a good starting point. So to me, that relieves pressure off of the running game. It's almost like you can set up the pass to kind of help the run instead of vice versa. Especially when you have a running quarterback like Deshaun Watson. To me, that's even better for the run. So, like we talked about before, Lamar Miller is somebody that I'm looking at that you can get kind of later in the draft as a solid guy, but you don't want to draft him as your number one. That's the only point we want to come across.
Yeah,
you don't want the Miller as your number one, but if you get Miller as your number two, great spot.
As your flex,
yes,
even better.
Yes, even better. There's not a whole lot to say about DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he's literally a top pick in dynasty leagues, and that's the way it's going to be. Will Fuller.
There's some divide with Will Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people. I was on. I'm in the Will Fuller business now, and prior, like I wasn't a fan necessarily. I thought it was very. I don't know if fluky is the right word, but everything that was happening last year, like I try to have restraint and not just gobble all that up. Like, oh my God, this is the next best thing ever. These guys are going to have 20 touchdowns a year.
Right.
Because they were scoring touchdowns at an absorbent rate. It was ridiculous almost.
But you kind of did some digging on a previous episode about Fuller and the way he just absolutely destroyed it in college.
Oh, he was good. He was good in college. Definitely.
Yes, but the numbers were like off the charts, and he was a first round pick. He was a first round pick in 2016. His only knock has been he's had those strange injuries, kind of like the Keenan Allen like unlucky injury type thing. So if this guy could put together a full season of 16 games, which he hasn't yet, he played 14 his rookie year and he played 10 last year. But if he can put together,
terrible. It's not
terrible. But yeah, if he could put together a 16-game season with Deshaun Watson and Hopkins healthy, this team and Fuller himself can do a lot of damage.
I agree. I definitely agree. I really like Will Fuller. He's that take the top off the defense kind of guy. When you watch some of the games from last year, he can get separation. He can get open, and I think he's a good football player. I think I had pigeonholed him as just a guy who kind of goes deep, a Deshaun Jackson type.
Yeah.
But you know, at this point, Deshaun Jackson, there's not a whole lot of love for the type of game he has because he's going to be like, 2 catches, maybe get you a touchdown, maybe get you 80 yards, or fall off the map in a game. So I pegged him like that, and I wasn't really a fan of that. But watching how they play together,
right?
Like I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan.
Especially in a redraft league, you can get him as your flex guy.
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, that's pretty solid. If you have a Will Fuller type in your flex, because let's face it, he's not going in the top 7 or 8 rounds. So you have a chance to maybe, especially if you wait on a quarterback, to get someone like a Fuller in your flex spot. All he needs is to stay healthy. I mean, that's it. I'm not ready to stamp his passport yet, but I have it ready. I have the ink ready.
Yeah, I mean,
I want it. I want it to happen.
I'm about an inch away from the passport stamping that sucker.
Yeah, I want it to happen.
If he starts the first game and he's healthy, I'll stamp it. I can revoke it at any time, but I'll stamp it if he starts that first game and he's healthy. To touch on it, he only played 3 years in college, and his freshman year he only played 6 games, 6 catches, nothing, irrelevant basically. I don't really know. He probably wasn't even really involved, or other guys there. I haven't looked that deep into it. He went to Notre Dame, but his sophomore and junior year, because he came out after his junior year, he played 13 games, and from what I've been, learning, a good baseline for a receiver in college is that 800-yard mark.
Right.
So if you got guys that are getting like 800 yards receiving in college, that's a good kind of baseline to show that they're probably pretty decent. His sophomore season, he had 76 catches for over 1,000 yards, just under 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
His junior year, 62 catches, 1,258 yards, 14 touchdowns. Like, those are 2 great seasons. Like, I would have came out after my junior season as well.
Yeah.
Like, what else do you have to prove?
2 solid seasons in a row.
What else do you have to prove? So I think he's translated kind of that. Like, I didn't know that prior to being in the Will Fuller business, that he was that productive in college. So that helped. My mind was open when I started to hear some things about Will Fuller being, a different type of player than I had first thought.
Envisioned him, yeah.
Yeah. So after digging and finding all these positive things, dude, I'm on board. I'm on board. I've acquired him in where I can.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, he's definitely a buy for me as well. Behind those two guys, there's a little battle right now. They have Braxton Miller, they have Sammy Coates on their squad, they have Bruce Ellington, and then they drafted Kiki Cutie. That's the guy that, from all accounts I've heard, is been working in the slot. He's not a guy I'm looking at in a redraft. He's definitely someone I'm looking at in Dynasty. He was drafted in the 4th round this last year, and he's definitely an upgrade from what they've had there. And I know we have to kind of move along because we have 3 other teams to go to. But
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back into the flow here, bro.
That's
I'm
okay.
Coming off the beach.
That's okay. Any thoughts on that 3rd spot? Like, do you think Cutie wins that?
I do.
Okay.
At what point?
So
I'm
do
not
I.
sure. I think he could win at any point. I like QT. Where I could get him in rookie drafts, I did. And in a redraft, if it's late and some of those rookies are out there, I think he's a good flyer to take that. If
Shot in
he
the
does
dark.
become productive, he could be a great flex play for you.
He could be. I'm not really looking into him in the redraft leagues, but in Dynasty, I'm all in on Kiki Cutie.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
I am
Other
too.
than that, I don't
I
really
am
know
too.
what else is really going on there. Tight ends?
Tight end, I don't want any of these guys. I don't even know what's going on. Between Ryan Griffin, Steven Anderson, the rookie Jordan Akins, and they drafted also Jordan Thomas, I don't know what to expect from this. I really don't. It feels like the tight end is not going to be really relevant in this offense as far as like a pass catcher. I think there's going to be guys that get catches here and there, but not someone you're going to be able to play on a week-to-week basis.
For me, that's still up in the air because however training camp and preseason goes, if a guy starts to kind of separate himself a little bit, I do think he can be productive. There was a couple of weeks there with Watson where the tight end was getting a fair amount of targets. So if he's getting a fair amount of targets and has a chance, then I would possibly take a chance on that. I think that's a fertile ground if one guy can step forward and kind of be, getting the majority of the targets.
To me, someone needs to separate themselves for me to even take a look at anybody tight end wise in Houston right now.
Yeah, for sure. Heading into the season for redraft, definitely. I don't know in Dynasty where I want to lay those chips.
Right. Let's move on to Indy.
All right, let's move on. So, Indianapolis Colts have had a rough go. A lot of injuries lately.
Terrible defense.
Yeah, they're terrible all over. Offensive line was terrible. They have a new head coach, though. So maybe some things are going to change around a little bit.
I hope so.
So do I. Hopefully their quarterback comes back and is healthy and can be productive and, 85% of what he was, he'll still be good.
Andrew Luck says he's pain free, and he's been throwing the football now for a couple of weeks, so that's a good sign that he's not feeling any kind of pain in that shoulder whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad sign, but I think the truth will be told when he has to do it consistently, week after week with pads,
or if he gets
taking
hit.
hits. Will he be pain free? Probably not. Everybody has pain in the NFL, but will he be able to sustain it? Will his shoulder be able to handle that? Like it's such a risk, but it's another one of those like we were talking with the risk reward. Like that risk could pay off huge dividends.
The thing that sucks for him too with Andrew Luck is that he's playing in a division where they have some pretty solid defense. Like Jacksonville's defense is no joke, and Houston, when they're healthy, their defense is no joke.
Tennessee's ain't that bad either.
And Tennessee improved this year, so he's in a tough spot. Like
Yeah.
I still think they finish at the bottom end. It's literally between Indy and Tennessee. I think Tennessee's a little bit better as a all around team. So I still don't think that the Colts slide out of that the cellar. But I think this whole entire division is actually on the upswing. I think that any one of these teams could surprise anybody.
Yeah. I think it's Jacksonville and Houston.
Yes,
that
I
are
agree.
Going to duke it out.
I agree.
But yeah, there's a new coach in Tennessee as well, so it's going to be. I think this is one of the divisions to watch.
Yes.
I'm very excited to kind of watch this division unfold this season. Behind Luck, there's Brissett who did okay filling in when he had to. So I mean, they'll be okay. I think better than last year because they addressed that offensive line and they got a monster on offensive line and
Quentin Nelson,
who likes to pancake guys, and I heard he likes to teabag guys, and he got a nickname Earl Grey.
Wow.
Because he likes to pancake and teabag guys. I almost laughed myself out of my seat when I heard that one on the podcast.
I mean, I would love to see that in a game.
You saw the film of his
Well, how do you
college one
teabag
where-
somebody with a helmet on, though?
you can still kind of like do the motions and do the thing.
I guess so. I don't know if that's gonna go over too well in the NFL.
I don't expect you to literally like.
Yeah, I get that. It's gonna be
teabag him, but
yeah. Well, I mean, John Holmes, yeah, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see if he does that. I think he's gonna be an absolute stud, and that's why this running back committee, to me, whoever emerges as like the lead guy, I think he's gonna have a productive year, especially if he's running behind Nelson.
Does anybody emerge though?
Who knows? Who knows if they ride the hot hand or if they literally say like, look, this is how we're going to break it down. With the running backs, you have Marlon Mack, who, you know, by all accounts is going to get the first crack at it. And then Robert Turbin, who's one of the backups, he just got busted for 4 games. I think that kind of takes him out of the equation.
Yeah, that sucks.
Because he's going to be behind the 8 ball when he comes back. He's going to be behind everything. They just drafted Nyheim Hines and they drafted Jordan Wilkins. 2 completely different players. Hines is more of a pass-catching back, and Jordan Wilkins is more like a between-the-tackles kind of guy. They're not going to throw a lot to Wilkins, but they really didn't throw that much to Mack either. I think Mack can catch better than Wilkins, but you're looking at a 3-person committee. We've actually had them on the episode, Show Me Your Committees, and we've talked about them in depth. So we won't go into super, super deep depth here, but what do you think about that whole committee shakedown?
I think, yeah, I agree. Mack has that first shot. I think it's going to be a different story than last year because of the offensive line. And if Luck is back, it will be like a fresh start, I think, for Mack. I'm not a huge Mack believer necessarily, but I mean he's worth a shot and worth a look, especially if they get things kind of fixed there in Indy.
I agree.
Behind him, the only guy I would really want myself is Hines. I'm still on the fence about Wilkins. I'm not really completely. I just don't think he can come in and necessarily just take the job away from Mack. And if anything, they're probably going to be sharing. But
they're going to be eating into each other's. Yeah.
I think it's Mack's job to lose, basically. Is
how
I feel.
The guy I want to own, especially in a PPR league, is probably Hines because he's somebody that you don't have to really waste a high draft pick on in your redraft league. And you're talking about PPR. I think that they're going to use him a lot in the passing game, even if they have to line him up in the slot and have him run routes. I think he's a guy that can do that. Dynasty-wise, I'm interested in all 3 guys. I'm interested in Wilkins, Hines, and Mack in Dynasty leagues. I know they have Christine Michael there, but I think he's just a guy.
Oh, I'm off that train. I was never really on that train, but he's had his shot. He's had his chances, and I think we've seen what we're going to see.
Immaturity got the best of him, I think, because he was pretty talented in college.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of different factors, I think, that went into his just not being productive, I guess you could say. So wide receivers?
Yeah, besides the obvious, T.Y. Hilton, who gets a huge uptick, in my opinion, if Luck is able to come back and play 16 games.
This is, what are we looking at, Roto World here? Their depth chart. It's an interesting kind of, I wasn't looking at this one earlier, and it's a little bit different than what I was looking at.
Yeah, I think this is who they feel is going to be on the depth chart, which is obviously the Colts haven't listed their depth chart. But to me, the number 2 spot behind T.Y. Hilton is kind of up for grabs. I mean, they have guys like Chester Rogers, who's coming back, and he's used to their system. They have Ryan Grant, who's brand new. I guess I have to give the nod right now to Chester Rogers until someone comes in and blows me away in camp. But they also drafted the 2 rookies, Deion Kane and Doris Fountain, who I also think has a shot to come in and maybe take the number 2 or 3 spot away.
Yeah, I like Fountain. I definitely Deion Kane. I'm interested. If I had a choice between Fountain and Kane, I'd probably take Fountain. But Chester Rogers, I'm not buying. I'm not a believer in.
I think they have him as the number 2 right now because he's the layover. Like he was there the last couple of years.
And
whereas,
like you said, Indy hasn't come out with their depth chart, so this is all speculation. But as Ryan Grant, I would probably put Ryan Grant in the number 2 spot. I would probably pencil him in there. And then rookies are rookies. I mean, they don't tend to come in and just blow the doors off things. So.
Deion Kane did go to wide receiver U though.
That's true. That's why I kind of am interested.
That's why you're interested.
Yeah.
Anybody comes out of Clemson that's a receiver, my interest is piqued.
Yeah, you got to pay attention a little bit. Sometimes they come in and they don't do anything, but sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do. They play big.
More often than not, they seem to do that. But Fountain, small school kid, by all accounts, He was snubbed for the combine.
Yeah.
He showed out pretty well at the Senior Bowl. He's got a little cult following of guys kind of in the know.
He does.
Uh,
We talked about him as one of the snubs back when we did our pre-draft breakdown of all these rookies, and that's one of the guys we talked about. We said, keep an eye out for this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to get drafted. Just watch out for this guy. He went to Northern Iowa, so it was a small school. They're not really known for football. And he didn't get invited, but his pro day was actually really good. And he had, like you said, he had that kind of following. Like, people in that area knew about him.
Yeah. I think for him to really kind of be relevant, and not even like super relevant this first year, luck has to play. Luck has to play.
I agree.
And get that
Rapport with him.
passing game like moving.
Yeah.
Um,
What about tight end? They have two good ones, but do they eat into each other's stats?
I don't know. I'm very interested. I'm very interested in the tight ends here. Actually, I was digging in, looking on a few things. Frank Wright is the new coach here in Indianapolis.
Yes.
Who was in Philly, where they kind of used multiple tight ends.
Yeah.
Before that, he was in San Diego, I believe, where they've been known to use the tight end. So, like, I'm interested, like, more so than I was a week ago in these tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they have two guys that could easily finish in the top 15. Like, both of them could.
If luck is there and is healthy,
yes,
there's a lot of fantasy production that could be had on this team.
Who do you say you're in a draft? Say you're in a redraft, okay? Who do you take first if you're looking at tight end? Do you take Doyle or do you take Eric Ebron, their new acquisition? Like, who are you taking when it comes down to whatever, the 11th round? You need a tight end. Who are you taking first off the board?
Okay, value all being the same. You're all going in the same area. Basically, that's irrelevant. So at that point, if it's just in a vacuum, I would probably go Doyle.
I think I would too, and it's not a knock on Eric Ebron. I think it's more just like I want to see if he has rapport. Because let's face it, he really didn't do anything until this last year, which was his contract year.
Yeah.
Everyone's been waiting for Ebron to happen, and it finally kind of happened last year, but now he's going to a brand new team, brand new system, and Jack Doyle's been there. So Jack Doyle is the guy that I'm going to want to. In a redraft, Dynasty, maybe different, because Ebron's a little bit younger, but as far as redrafts, I'm going Doyle ahead of Ebron.
I could see Ebron having his best year here. I just think Detroit didn't really utilize the tight end enough for him to be really relevant. Like, there was times where he was kind of involved, and he looked like that he had that ability that, like, I don't know if justified taking 10th overall when he was drafted, but I just don't think they used tight end in Detroit very well. So they do here in Indy, so I'm excited for those two. I think they're going to use multiple tight ends.
Yeah, one other thing before we move on to Jacksonville is with Indy is I love the situation when you have pass catchers in a division, especially a team that has no good defense, because they're going to be behind a lot. And so what's going to happen is they're going to have to throw. And to me, garbage time is just as good as any other time. Like, if you tell me that, I'm going to get a ton of passes from Andrew Luck in the fourth quarter and he's going to be keying on all these guys that we're talking about, I'm down for that.
Yeah, for sure. It could be, like I said, it could be very lucrative fantasy-wise this team if that quarterback situation, because the offensive line, by all accounts, should be handled. And if that quarterback situation is straightened out, that will help the run game.
Yes.
That will help the pass game.
This team all comes down to Andrew Luck. So we're waiting on you, Mr. Luck.
He's the end-all be-all for the Colts.
We're waiting on you. You tell us what's going on.
Let us know, bud.
Let's move on to Jacksonville, because I like this team.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this team. Real quick with Jacksonville. Okay, last year, 10-6, won the division, made it to the conference championships, lost to the Patriots. We know the story. They beat the Bills in a wild card, 10-3. They beat Pittsburgh in that 45-42 game. They were very fun.
Big lead on New England in the conference game too.
And New England being New England, I think that inexperience for Jacksonville, kind of getting that far and that deep.
Yeah.
Because this is that first year where they've kind of turned it around. Prior to 2017 when they were 10-6, I'm gonna rattle off their records from 2012.
It's bad. Go ahead.
2-12, 4-12, 3-13, 5-11, 3-13. So clearly that's how they built this team, because they got a lot of great draft picks in those years, and they've had a lot of guys who sometimes that first year they came in were hurt or whatever was going on, and everybody wasn't kind of there together at the same time. Last year seemed to be the first time where it was clicking. Everything was clicking.
I agree.
So, Doug Marrone is the coach here. And he just kind of took over 2017.
Yeah, say
he
2
was
years.
there since 2015 as the offensive line coach.
Yes.
So, he's been there for a few years. He's a Herm Edwards, Sean Payton disciple, which the
Oh, I
Sean
like
Payton
that.
part I didn't really kind of realize. He was an offensive coordinator from 06 to 08 in New Orleans,
Okay.
which I didn't know. Head coach of the Bills in 2013 and 14. That's what I really kind of remember him as.
Those are the forgotten years.
Yes, they are forgotten, definitely.
Those are the bad years.
So, okay, jumping into it. There's basically one option at quarterback?
Am I the only guy, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but am I the only guy that thinks that Blake Bortles is actually a good quarterback?
I don't dislike Blake Bortles.
I think he's going to be a solid quarterback, and I don't know why, and I know everyone's going to probably make fun of this, but I just have a weird feeling about Blake Bortles this year. I think he finishes in the top 15 with an outside possibility is finishing in the 12-13 range.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. The only thing to me is, with that defense, they're in a lot of game scripts where they can probably run a lot.
Right. And they have improved their offensive line.
Yeah. So I that's not out of the realm of possibility for me. But I think he got a bad rap because they were so bad. And sometimes when a team is just so bad,
You blame the
it's
quarterback.
hard. Yeah, and yes, definitely you blame the quarterback, but it's hard to be consistent and look that part that you're like, oh yeah, this guy's a good quarterback. Granted, he's not the best quarterback. He's not upper echelon kind of guy.
Right.
But he is definitely a good, I don't know, journeyman's not the word, but everybody thought he was going to be gone this year
And
or last year.
they signed him to a 3-year deal, but the 3-year deal is kind of open-ended because after this year, they could let him go and save a lot of cap space.
Is it just me or I look at every contract is open-ended now just because
Everyone
many
that's-
seem
yeah.
to be. So I don't even.
That's true.
Somebody says, oh, he signed for this, that, or whatever. I'm like, okay, that doesn't really kind of, depending on the player, doesn't mean a whole lot to me because it seems like they're structuring stuff that way so they can get out if they need to without a huge hit.
See, to me, the telling tale for Jacksonville especially was not that they gave Bortles that 3-year deal to extend him, but the fact they didn't draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
They had multiple spots where there was a quarterback in that area that they could have taken, and the fact they didn't. They signed Tanner Lee to an undrafted free agent, undrafted rookie free agent contract, and he's the 3rd right now behind Cody Kessler. But to me, that showed that maybe they do trust Bortles, and they want Bortles to be the guy.
It almost feels like that whole situation, kind of like the Baltimore Ravens when they had Dilfer, kind of when they have a team is so good on defense, and they got running game, they got pieces around. You don't need an Aaron Rodgers necessarily. Would it be nice to have one? For sure. But you just need a guy that's going to get in there, get the job done, and not completely lose games for you.
Right.
So, running backs?
Running backs.
Leonard Fournette basically is the show in town.
There's definitely no committee here. This is Leonard Fournette's job, and TJ Yeldon will be sprinkled in on receiving downs, but Fournette can catch as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't throw to him a lot, but he also came from LSU where they don't really throw to the backs a lot there. Same thing happened with Darius Geis last year. They just don't throw to the running backs. But I think Fournette can catch.
Yeah, I think it was always kind of thrown out there that he can catch. He can
Yes.
catch. I remember hearing, don't be worried about him not catching passes at LSU.
Right.
They do sprinkle in guys quite a bit with the run game. I don't know what is in my throat, brother.
It's the sand from Florida,
That's
probably.
what
Were
it
you
is.
eating it too?
I was sitting there with my son.
You
eating
and
sand.
Braden, you're like, hey, this is how you do it. And you kind of start eating it.
I mean,
It's a little
let me make a
scratchy.
sandwich for you, son.
Here's the one thing I want to say about the running backs. TJ Yeldon is a guy that's been given opportunities just through injuries and stuff. He's not a guy I would ever consider as a first and second down back. He is strictly there for receiving purposes only. He's a very good pass catcher. In my opinion, the handcuff to own is Corey Grant. If anything happens to Fournette, if his ankle starts acting up again, I think Grant is the guy that gets the first and second down carries, and I think that Yeldon stays in that same role as the pass catcher. Grant is somebody that I'm high on in Dynasty, especially if I own Fournette. That's a guy I want to own because I think that Grant is a guy that has shown flashes when he's given the opportunity, and he's one injury away from being a starting guy.
See, I disagree. I think Yeldon is my guy there. I think if Fournette goes down, I think Yeldon gets thrown in there. I think Grant kind of gets. I think they get mixed in. Obviously, nobody's going to take over that exact role of Fournette.
Right.
But Yeah, we're on opposite sides of the fence there. I'm a
This
big,
is
I'm
one
a
of-
big Yeldon fan. I think this is his last year on his contract. I think he could be a free agent next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'll look that up right now. What you're talking about him, what you're gushing about him. Go ahead.
So when it comes to like TJ Yeldon, that's kind of what intrigues me a little bit about 2019 free agent.
Yeah.
So if he is to, I like his profile. He's a good sized back, 6'1", 223. He can catch, he can do both. I feel like he can kind of be that. I mean, there's very few guys that are the guy that are first and second down guys consistently, but I think he can kind of have that role more so than some guys in the league that do have that role already. For me, it's Yeldon.
For me, it's Corey Grant.
So
So
I
this
wish
is
I
one where
wish
we
I had
need.
Corey Grant. I wish you had Yeldon. We could make a trade.
Yeah. Well, what we need here is we need James to kind of settle this because we've come to a crossroad where we disagree on the player.
Yeah, that's good.
Corey Grant is also a free agent,
Yow!
so maybe
What are
he's
they
the
gonna
one.
do next year?
Maybe he's the one
Who's gonna get signed?
that steps forward and. Well, if they come down to who gets signed, it's probably going to be Yeldon because Yeldon is, to me, a different back than Corey Grant.
Yeah.
So to me, obviously Fournette's their future. So if it comes down to where they have to sign Yeldon or Grant, they probably sign Yeldon because he's a very good complement, in my opinion, to Fournette. I'm not bashing Yeldon at all. I'm just saying that if Fournette goes down for any kind of extended period, I don't think it's just like, here you go, Yeldon, you get first, second, and you're our third down back. I think Corey Grant gets first and second down, and Yeldon stays in that same role. Kind of like what they do in Cleveland with Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
If in the past, if Crowell went down, it wasn't like they just let Duke have first and second down. Same thing as Chris Thompson in Washington. Very good running back. But they don't want him to be an every down back. He's like, you're our pass catching back type of thing. And that's the way I kind of view Yeldon. I still think he's good. I just don't think he's...
Yeah, Thompson's a little dude. He's a little dude. He's that typical third down, little guy catching passes kind of guy. I think, doesn't Grant do some kickoff returns and some
He
stuff
does.
like that? So I think he's kind
Jack of all trades.
I think he's he's a Swiss Army knife.
He can do everything.
Yeah, okay, we can move on. Time will tell. We're gonna have to make a wall bet on those two.
Actually, let's do a wall bet. We haven't done a wall bet today. Let's do a wall bet. Let's
All right.
say fantasy points, and this is really going to screw me, though, because Yeldon's still going to have a role. Mine would depend on if Fournette gets hurt. How about this? How about we'll do this? How about we do more rushing yards? Since we're talking about first and second down, who will have more rushing yards? Because I already know for 100% fact that Yeldon will have more receiving yards and more receptions than Corey Grant.
You're on.
Wall bet. Okay, there you go. Wall bet. Rushing yards. Not even fantasy points. Just rushing yards. Corey Grant or TJ Yeldon. Let's put it on the board.
Let's do it. All right, so wide receivers. This is a interesting kind of a dilemma, or not dilemma, but what's been happening with this wide receiver core is very interesting because they had Allen Robinson
Yes.
gone.
Yes.
They had Allen Hurns
Yes. Gone.
Now they have two rookies last year, and they brought in some more rookies. So they got Marquise Lee is the holdover that was there prior to the rookies that came in last year, and Keelan Cole
Yes.
and D.D. Westbrook.
Yes.
They brought in Dante Moncrief
Mhm.
from Indianapolis. He's
They
got a
drafted-
1-year deal.
Yes. 1 year deal.
So Moncrief, DJ Chark drafted this year. They have that Jaden Mickens kid who flashed in a game or two.
Rashad Green's also a holdover.
Yeah, I think he reminds me of like Seth Roberts, to where it's like
He's not going to ever make any
not ever
waves.
gonna do anything. Yeah, but every once in a while you'd be like, should I put this guy on my roster?
The thing that surprised me the most was when they extended Lee. Like, they gave him a 4-year deal. $38 million, 4 years. So, and it also includes $18 million guaranteed.
And you hate Lee.
That's the thing that surprised me. I don't.
He's a USC receiver, and you don't like those guys.
I'm not sold on Marquise Lee. I don't know why Jacksonville is, but I'm not.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it has something to do with maybe he's some type of a leader in the locker room, or there's a lot of young guys there. Maybe I don't know. I'm not even.
He's definitely not a touchdown guy. Like, if you look at his stats, and I know we don't want to go too deep into his stats, but you're talking about 3-3-1-1. Like, he's not somebody they look for in the end zone, and he's not really a guy that they're giving a ton of targets to, really. So it's like he's good, but I don't think he's the best receiver in Jacksonville. And right now he's being paid as the best receiver in Jacksonville. Time will tell. I love this receiving core as a group. Like I love Keelan Cole. I love D.D. Westbrook. I think Moncrief has a good year. Maybe that's gonna be their touchdown guy. That's the guy looking for in the end zone. And I like DJ Chark. So there's a lot of guys I like there, but I want to see who's gonna the cream's gonna rise to the top, and I want to see who's the one that comes out of this, because I personally am putting all my eggs in the D.D. Westbrook basket. He's not the biggest or strongest guy, but I think he's the most complete guy there. I don't know how you feel about this receiving core. And don't get me wrong, because I like Cole and I like DJ Chark and I like Moncrief, but to me, my favorite guy out of all this bunch is D.D. Westbrook.
See, yeah, I was earlier last year, or even midway through last year, we were both in the same camp with Westbrook.
Right.
We both loved Westbrook. I still, as a player, like Westbrook. I think I had him and sold him. I believe I sold him to you.
To me, yeah.
I had Cole in another league, and I sold him, I think, to your brother.
Yes.
So what it is for me is it's very diluted here. And I don't think they really favor a guy that I could say, okay, this guy's going to rise to the top and he's going to be the guy to get everything. I think they spread it around enough to where nobody's really going to be super relevant.
And that
as far
sucks.
as more than a flex,
Yes.
possibly or two, but not consistently. I don't think it'll be consistent.
And that sucks for fantasy relevance, because it's great for the team.
Yeah, NFL-wise, they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be different guys that have these little spurts here and there. But yeah, for
They got
fantasy-wise,
young, fast guys.
Yes.
There's a lot of speed on this team.
But-
Trucks is a speedster too.
as far as like drafting them, I don't know if I want to draft them in a redraft,
Yeah.
because I just don't know. Like from week to week, who is it going to be? Who is Bortles going to like the best? And then like we can move on really fast to kind of include him in this as tight end. They go out and they grab Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So now they have like a tight end that's decent, better than what they've had. Because let's face it,
Yeah.
Mercedes Lewis was not the answer. He was just a guy.
He was aging.
And so now you bring in Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who we know can catch, and he seemed to have kind of turned the corner on his off-the-field troubles that he had in Tampa. He had 2 solid seasons in New York where he was like, not a world beater, but he was starting to turn it, and you could see the maturity level was going up. I think he kind of puts it together here in Jacksonville, and he could be one of those outlets for Blake Bortles, like a little dump-off guy.
Be like the Mercedes Lewis, where all of a sudden you get 3 touchdowns in a game.
And that's what I'm saying. He
And
could
you
be.
don't do much for. Yeah, it's
It's very muddled, but it's muddled with good
it's
players.
murky.
Right.
Very murky. So yeah, I agree. In a redraft, give me the last guy. Whoever's left, the latest in the draft,
Right.
give him to me. and
Because he
we'll
could
see.
be the guy. Let's move on to Tennessee to finish this up here. Quarterback, not a whole lot to say about. Do we think this is the year that Marcus Mariota turns the corner because they got rid of the old style, exotic, smash mouth, BS offense?
It worked for 1 year, and everybody was like, "Whoa, maybe is there something to
Yeah,
this?"
it was adorable for 1 year, but it ran its course.
So yeah, let's see. We got a new coach.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about this coach, though. He's a young coach, Mike Vrabel, longtime Patriot. He was the line in Houston. His only coaching stops were in Houston. In 2014 to 16, he was the linebackers coach.
Yeah.
Last year, he was the defensive coordinator for Houston, and then now he's the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. So I'm still out. What it really comes down to is Matt LaFleur.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Matt LaFleur is the guy that I think. I don't even look at Vrabel. I mean, he's the head coach, but what I want to see is this new offensive coordinator. And he comes from, do you have his tree down? Because
he's last. I think the only thing that really matters is last year he was with the Rams with Sean
Yes.
McVay. So I think that's where he's getting a lot of that.
Sean.
He's coming from this awesome turnaround that
Yes.
happened in LA with progressive kind of stuff going on there offensively. So that's what I'm very excited to see. I think Marcus Mariota does probably take a
Step forward.
step forward. How big of a step, I'm not sure. He's got the talent to kind of do all the things that we expect from him. Will he really ever reach that ceiling that we have always wanted for him? I don't think so. But I think he's a good quarterback who probably has a job for a good amount of time.
I would agree. And as I was doing my redraft rankings, which will be up shortly, and I was going through quarterbacks.
Your rookie rankings are up there.
My rookie rankings are up there, yes.
If anybody's still doing rookie drafts, you can check out Jay and James's rookie rankings on triplecoveragePodcast.com.
And I got to finish mine.
It's still in the works, so not everything, all content is up yet, but the rankings are accessible.
Yes. Have you done your quarterback rankings yet?
For redraft?
Yeah.
I have not.
I started doing them the other night, and as I was going through my quarterback rankings, there's like 20 good ones that I could see like, yeah, this guy's outside of my top 12, but I could see him finishing inside the top 12, and I was going down. So it makes me think even more that I'm going to wait on a quarterback. I'm not going to take a quarterback early.
The late round QB style, huh?
Because I'm looking at it, and there's like literally 20 guys that you could make a case for finishing in the top 12.
You know a great one? There's a couple great ones. Always is, Rivers is always a great one.
Right. Roethlisberger.
Alex Smith.
There's guys that can finish.
Yes.
So Mariota is one of those guys for me. He's outside of my top 12, but it wouldn't completely shock me if he finished in the top 12. I would be like, okay, yeah, I can see that happening. But
if he goes down,
they're in
Gabbert
trouble.
Or Falk?
I say Gabbert.
I do too.
Because Gabbert was actually okay in spot starts in San Francisco. Not great, but he was okay.
I think that's exactly what he is. He's a good number 2 because he's got a few facets to his game. So,
but everybody is going to be looking at this running back committee. You have a two-headed monster there with Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry.
Is it a committee though, or is this pretty
a 50-50 split? Maybe.
Status quo for the NFL though.
It is now. Dion Lewis is going to be the one getting all the receptions. Derrick Henry doesn't really get many receptions.
Right.
He can catch, but they really don't use him in that facet. He's more of a guy that if Tennessee has the lead, to me, it's going to be Derrick Henry that finishes out the fourth quarter and just pounds away at the defense.
In a standard touchdown only league, he's a good thing to have.
Right. In a PPR league, he's probably no more than a flex guy. I don't really want him as my running back 1 or 2, but if I have him in my flex, I'm okay with that.
So he could have the range of possibilities is interesting because if Lewis goes down, he's gonna get fed.
Right.
Henry's gonna get fed.
The only guy behind him is David Fluellen. They have Akram Wadley. They also drafted. He's more of a little guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Derrick Henry's gonna get fed.
Henry's gonna get fed a lot if Lewis gets hurt.
And if Henry happens to get banged up, Lewis is a guy who's been known to be able to kind of do both things, run inside a little bit,
right.
Even smartly. They have Matt LaFleur, so you are expecting that to be a possibility. So yeah, either one of these guys, I would have either one of these guys. Who would you rather have?
You know who I would rather have?
Derrick Henry.
You know who I'd rather have? That's a silly question.
Jay is the resident Henry truther.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that I like about Henry, but I just I don't know.
You're too committed, man.
You know what it is? You know what it is that, and this is not a saying. I'm not comparing these two guys, but I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and growing up, Emmitt Smith was my guy. Like he was just the guy, and Henry is kind of like the same type of style. Like he's not like a big time receiving back. He's a guy that's gonna just wear on defenses, and I'm not comparing the two, saying Henry's anything close to Emmitt Smith. I'm just saying they're like the same type of style, which is what I like, and so maybe that's my connection with him. I don't know.
That could be. I can see that. Like I just wish he would run with more of that style. You know, he's big and a bruiser, but sometimes it seems like he doesn't use that to his advantage as much.
I'll talk to him, maybe see if we can get him to do it a little more this year.
Yeah, send him a tweet or something.
I will.
Hit him on the,
I'll tag him.
Hit him on the beeper. Give him a beep.
I'll tag him on this episode because he knows he got his #1 fan here at Triple Coverage Podcast.
All right, wide receivers.
Yes.
This is, I don't know what to think about this crew. We got Corey Davis, Rashard Matthews, Tavon Taylor, Tajay Sharp.
And that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. And
they have a couple of rookies they brought in it wasn't drafted.
Yeah, nobody really of note though, right? Like
nobody of note. Nobody that's going to come in and make any kind of difference. To me, it's going to be Corey Davis, Rashard Matthews, and Tavon Taylor. That's going to be their 3 receiver sets.
How much do you like Tavon Taylor? Because for me, it's 2 guys. I don't know if I would even want to take a shot at Tavon Taylor or Tajay Sharp.
Tavon Taylor to me is not something I'm taking anywhere near redraft, but Tavon Taylor is something that I'm holding on to in Dynasty because I think that eventually it's going to be Corey Davis and Tavon Taylor is going to be their top 2 guys.
So how long are you willing to wait though? Because Rashard Matthews, I don't see as that awesome #1 guy, but he is a great journeyman wide receiver, a guy who will just stick around. Like I feel like he will just stick around. He'll be productive in his role. And if something happens, he could take over the #1 spot for a period of time. He went to Nevada. That's pretty sweet. But Corey Davis was drafted to be that guy. And
Corey Davis should be that guy.
He has the ability to do that. My point is Ken Mariota sustained 3 wide receivers. Enough that you want to hold on to Tavon Taylor.
But see, that's the thing is I won't have to hold on to him for very long because Rashard Matthews is a free agent at the end of this year. They owe him $5 million this year. I think that right now he's the number one. I think they want Corey Davis to eventually be the number one there, and that's what they drafted him for, is to be the number one. But right now, people are sleeping on Rashard Matthews.
No, he's in Dynasty. He's a good vet guy to have on your squad.
I think even in redrafts, people are sleeping on him.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a guy that you can take probably in the 13th or 14th round.
And I would rather take him than a rookie, most likely.
Right.
Sitting there at that point.
And that's what I mean. And then to me, they want Corey Davis to be the number one, and eventually he's going to be. But when is that going to happen? Number one, and number two, if Matthews just has an average year, he turns 29 at the first half of the season. So they're not going to give him this big, huge contract, I don't think, in Tennessee.
No, I don't think he's going to get a big, huge contract. But if you can keep a guy like that on the cheap,
if you can keep him
possible.
cheap,
So,
if you can keep him cheap.
I don't think he's going to command. Do you think he's going to, at 29 years old, being a journeyman, command really?
No, but if he tests the free agent market and someone's willing to give him a little more than Tennessee, and Tennessee's like, look, we got these young guys that are coming up that we want to use more. Just like with the tight end position, they have Delaney Walker, who's always in the top 5. But they drafted Jonnu Smith, and I think that they know the writing's on the wall. Like eventually Delaney Walker's getting up there in age, and Jonnu Smith kind of takes over. So I think that you're going to run it with a young. I like the outlook for this team, not maybe this year, but maybe in a year or two away. When you have Corey Davis, Tavon Taylor, Jonnu Smith at tight end, and then you're still running with Deion Lewis, who's 27 years old, and Derrick Henry. And you still have Mariota, who's young. I think this is a good young team.
Yeah.
Not someone that's going to compete for the division, but they're a good young team.
Yeah, I think what helps is that defense too. So
Much improved.
They're in more games than you kind of expect. But if that offense makes kind of an adjustment and is a different type of offense,
yeah,
I'm excited. Kind of this whole division, man. I'm super excited
to
see how it plays out.
I hope they have some games on TV because I like every one of these teams. I like to watch them on TV.
You know what we do here in Vegas? We go to the sports book and you get all the games.
You watch them all,
and you bet on them. You crack cold ones.
I'm actually saving. I haven't bet on anything this whole baseball season, and I really didn't bet that much in basketball season. Saving for the football season, and I'll probably be one of those idiots that bets preseason just so I can get some kind of action.
I want to bet on win totals, man. Let's go get a sheet and let's do some win totals.
I actually have the sheet.
We'll pull that sheet out, bro.
Yeah, I do have
you have
it.
it with you?
I have it in the car. Yes.
Oh, man.
Right outside the studio.
Let me see if I got any cold hard cash in my pocket. Is there anything you want to touch on with this division? Who do you think kind of? I don't know if you even want to go into it. Where are we running? We don't.
I think really quick we can wrap it up right here. I'll give my picks, you give yours, and we can crack a cold one.
Right.
I'll still say Jacksonville wins this division, but it's gonna be very close with Houston. I think Tennessee finishes in third, and Indy brings up the rear.
I'm gonna go Houston.
Okay.
I'm gonna ride the Houston train. I think Jacksonville. It's a race between Houston and Jacksonville. It is hard to duplicate some things in the NFL, so I think they might have a great season, but I think it might be Houston's time to kind of put some things together.
I could see that. I wouldn't be surprised by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either way.
I think it's gonna be a very close race with these two teams, with Jacksonville and Houston.
And
It's gonna come down to injuries.
dude, I don't even. It all depends on Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
Indy's last if Luck's not right and they can't kind of figure that out. If they can kind of figure it out, then Tennessee better watch out because
Look out!
look out, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Look out!
He was going to be first ballot Hall of Fame rookie year, right?
Yeah, he was.
So I mean, if he's anything like he was, look out.
All
Look
right.
out.
You ready to crack a cold one?
I've been ready to crack.
Let's crack it.
Crack.